taught in the classroom versus what is actually said in the real world. So this is how people actually speak versus what you were taught. And we noticed there weren't that many resources out there, which is where this came in.
And what's amazing is you then unpack it, don't you? You take the authentic interaction that you've secretly filmed, and you take it back and you unpack the language that's used and the communication strategies that's been used. And I think that's the really useful part for a lot of teachers and learners as well.
Yeah, they get to listen to it several times within one lesson. We repeat it, we slow it down, we look at different pronunciation features that might trip the listener up. We also look at grammar and vocabulary that is useful, and then by the end they can go away and do a role play, which we found a lot of teachers are using in their classrooms, actually using it to then play role plays in their classrooms and teach whole lessons around it, which is really fun to see.
I think it's really empowering for learners, isn't it, when they think, you know, as you said, you get course book English, we get this kind of like, prescriptive language teaching, and actually when they know they're using the real English, the real people are using and communicating with all the time, that's a real kind of like moment, I think. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Do the users use your product? Are they learners? Are they teachers? Or are teachers bringing it into the classroom?
Both actually. So all of our platforms are for independent learners, but we have found a lot of teachers are using them in the classroom, and we've had some really lovely videos of students using them in the classroom, and children often interacting using some of the phrases that we've taught them and looking quite empowered by it. So that's been really fun to see. They've been sharing it with us as we release all the episodes. So been lovely.
I wonder if they'll take your lead and go undercover themselves.
That
and
would
start
be fun.
filming.
That would be fun. Yeah. The idea is that if they come here, they'll just feel a bit more confident to interact authentically. So fingers crossed. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we have Shannon here as well, and Shannon, here you are representing
the Laureate speaking simulations.
Ooh.
Yes.
Would you tell us a bit more about your product?
Absolutely. So we develop speaking simulations where students can go on the internet, on our website, and they can go and practice real-life interactions with an avatar. And these are very realistic situations. They're very good pedagogy tied with cutting-edge technology, which makes it a lot of fun for the students. And they can go in and they practice it. They can do it multiple times. They're not static dialogues, so they're branching dialogues. And they can go in and give different responses and then receive different responses from the avatar. And they also get immediate feedback on how they're being understood, how they're completing the objectives in the conversations. And there are a lot of critical thinking skills involved. For example, scheduling a meeting with a colleague. So that on the computer screen you see their diary for the week. And then they simulate a telephone call, and the avatar is the colleague that they're trying to schedule an appointment with. And so they have conflicting schedules, and they have to negotiate using English. And we found that it's been the students really love it. They're very receptive to it. It's a safe way to practice speaking and get feedback in your speaking, especially for shy students.
Yeah, especially in situations where the focus is on reading and writing as well. It's often really hard to get that speaking practice. So it's a great way to use virtual reality to bring those people in and get them involved and actually get them practicing their functional English.
I think one of the challenges digital e-learning writers, designers often face is going beyond that discrete item testing and just teaching the third person s or teaching the present perfect, but to actually have an opportunity for the learner to practice fluency, to negotiate meaning, and that sounds like a perfect opportunity. You've kind of cracked it, haven't you?
I think we have, as a matter of fact. And let me tell you, the content development side was a real challenge. Because how do you do that and make it engaging, but not lose those discrete items that they need to learn, right?
Yeah.
And so they're practicing these conversations, but it's all based on a backbone of CEFR statements, can-do statements, at the high A1, A2 levels right now, in the 2 levels we offer right now. And then there are practice activities designed to go along with each of the simulations so that students can continue to practice and focus on the grammatical points, the vocabulary points that were presented in that situation.
In a communicative way. That's really exciting.
Really exciting, yeah. It's really taking things forward, isn't it? It's really
excited. We're really excited about it, and we've been trying to crack the code of how do you offer meaningful speaking practice at scale.
That's the key, isn't it? At scale.
At scale,
Yeah,
right.
that's the thing with online learning, is how can you do it realistically and at scale. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Anyway, that was Undercover English and Laureate Education Speaking Simulations Levels 1 and 2.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your
Exciting.
time.
Good luck.
Good luck for tonight.
Good luck. Have fun.
Thank you. And we have more finalists for
Yes.
digital innovation coming
Okay.
right up. And
Exciting times. Yes, come
over
on in.
here we have...
They have so much fun chatting in the queue. I think sometimes they forget that we're waiting for them to.
Over here, who do we have?
Hi.
How exciting.
Tiana from Education First.
Come here, come here.
Hi, VJ from Flash Academy.
All right.
Sarah Bromley from Big Languages.
Fantastic. Would you like to tell us a bit about your product? So let's start with you.
Yes. So our product is a digital platform for students to practice speaking English outside of the classroom and connect with locals. So they do challenges which are organized by their teachers on an admin website, and the students do these challenges using a chatbot, and they can go outside and interview locals or discover the areas where they're studying. The idea is to get them speaking English in real world situations and practicing communicating in English in authentic contexts. And then their results are saved and brought back to the classroom.
So your product is not designed to replace the classroom or to replace a course book, but it's meant to supplement what's happening in the classroom.
Exactly. It's meant to be a bridge between what they learn in the classroom and what happens in the real world outside, to get them to apply what they're learning in the real world.
And to stimulate real conversation and real communication in the process. Do they work collaboratively?
Yeah,
or
they work in teams, and
Okay.
they're given different tasks. It could be, for example, to go into a business and interview somebody about plastic usage, or it could be to go around and interview different people about what they like about Bristol. It can be various types of activities. The idea is to get them talking and communicating and building teamwork skills.
And I think I was reading over 70%, is it, that you say is over 70% of the language that students learn happens outside of the classroom.
Definitely.
And so you're trying to really encourage them to go ahead and maximize that time.
Yeah, definitely, to maximize and also to give students the opportunity to practice communicating in real world situations, and then in this way gain confidence in themselves and the ability they can do and apply it in real world situations.
I love the way they're using, when you think about digital innovation, you often think about this, these people in the comfort of their own homes hiding and learning English.
Yeah, it's a criticism, isn't it, of online, is that it's paradoxically isolating in a way, even though you're part of this massive World Wide Web. Often you're doing it alone, so doing something collaborative where people are engaging together. And when people set these challenges, can they share them with other users, or?
Yeah, so when the teacher creates it, they have a code that they give to their class, and this code can be shared, and it's valid for that challenge, and they join it, and then they work together, and the system pairs the students according to their first language, so we get teams of mixed first languages that really work together speaking English. And so it's
a gift that keeps giving, by the sounds of it.
It's like you're gamifying the experience. You're gamifying it. You're making it authentic. You're doing everything that we teachers wanted to do, and it's amazing to have that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And how about your product? Would you like to tell us a bit about it?
Sure. So Flash Academy helps where you have classrooms or workplaces where you have a big diversity of home languages spoken, but they're all trying to learn English. So imagine you've got a Polish student, an Arabic student, and a French-speaking student, but for a teacher that's quite hard to engage them all. So Flash Academy teaches English from 38 different home languages with lessons, games, an object translator, and provides all that learning data back to the educator. And the same for workplaces where you've got maybe health and safety challenges or technical English challenges. So we're working with employers like Jaguar Land Rover and construction companies to help them teach their workforce English via the digital experience of using a phone or a tablet or a computer.
So it's like the ultimate way of tailoring the product to suit the students.
Yeah, so it's a specific curriculum for that environment, whether it's a school. So what maths vocabulary do they need, or science vocabulary, so that that learner can enter the mainstream classroom as quickly as possible and not feel isolated and not have language as a barrier to their success, because ultimately English will be the foundation for everything. It will be how they learn, how they interact with their friends, how they feel good about themselves in the school environment. So what we're trying to do is help them get into a mainstream class as quickly as possible.
And what kind of feedback have you had from teachers? Because on a personal level, I can think when I was reading about your submission, I was thinking, oh my gosh, people have been crying out for something like this for a long, long time.
Yeah,
So.
you can feel the weight that comes off a teacher's shoulder when suddenly all of the students are learning independently and they can simply go to the student that needs their help, but they're also getting back all the data. So they can see the learning gaps and they can essentially help those learners progress. And the platform is also using that learning to feed in the new learning for that student as well.
Yeah.
So again, we have another product that's not to be used on its own. Can it be used on its own?
Yep. It can be used independently or can be used in the classroom. They can be competing with each other, but they use it in class and outside of class as well.
I love this with digital innovations when they help teachers teach. Sometimes you find people are using technology and they're trying to fit whatever they're trying to do into that for the sake of using digital innovation, whereas something like this is actually there to really support the teacher and free their time, take the weight off their shoulders and enable them to get on with their job.
Yeah, you're right, and we only launched it 18 months ago, but as well as being here, we've made EdTech 50 and Sunday Times Maserati 100 this year, so it's just really pleasing that we started as a team of two and now we're seeing all that success come from it. So it's
but
great.
That's what happens when there's a need and someone fills the need.
You're not using technology for technology's sake, you're using it to fulfill a need, like you said.
Absolutely,
Congratulations, that's amazing.
And the children now, over 12 months, are learning twice as quickly in the schools that we've run trials in. So that's the biggest proof, is actually the children are seeing that benefit in terms of how quickly they're acquiring English.
Yeah.
Fantastic, congratulations, you must be very proud.
Yeah, well done, yeah.
And let's hear about your product.
Yes, my product is called Go Correct. It's aimed at intermediate to advanced learners who've reached a point where what they'll benefit from most is just an opportunity to learn to use the English that they've learned. So it's based on a chatbot in Facebook Messenger, and the learner receives a daily conversation question which they reply to with a short text. That is then checked and corrected by a real human, and over time they get to see some statistics about where they make the most mistakes and which areas they can improve on. They can also click on a mistake to see a brief explanation of it. And it's great for those kind of people who they just reached a point now where they just want to practice what they've learned. There's a lot of language learning apps. They cater really for sort of lower levels, and it's a lot about kind of quizzes and gap fills, and it's a little bit impersonal. But this allows learners to talk more freely about their own life and opinions, and the human input gives it a kind of personal touch as well.
That's quite rare to have that human input when you're doing, is it an app or is it Facebook Messenger, you said?
Yeah, it's an app for Facebook Messenger, I suppose, but yeah, it combines a lot of automation with human input, and I think it's quite unique in that sense.
So learners are able to use it synchronously and asynchronously?
Yes, I mean, it's something that they, because it has a human input, obviously replies are not instant, but messages are checked within a day. So it kind of works on a daily cycle of they reply to a question every day, and then within the next 24 hours that text gets checked before they get, then they get the next question the next day.
Yeah. So we spoke a moment ago about digital innovation being difficult to get in terms of scale, but also in terms of relevance, because a lot, like you said, especially with the lower level things, it's very generic things, and you find yourself formulating these random sentences like, I like eating apples with my grandmother or whatever. You may not like apples, you may live a million miles from your grandmother, but what this product does is it actually tailors it to the interest, the opinions of the person using it. So they're talking in a realistic way about things they actually want to talk about, things they want to communicate, and then getting direct feedback on that. So,
yeah, that's right. And actually, really I think another sort of similar comparison for what it's like is doing a language exchange. And there's obviously a lot of language exchange apps out there. But I think they're only great for people who speak a first language that other people are wanting to learn, that's widely learned. So if you're, say, for example, a native Turkish speaker, you're not going to find that many native English speakers who want to practice their Turkish,
Exactly.
So in some ways, those sort of apps are only useful for the most widely learned languages. So this is a way of doing a similar thing, but in a more sort of structured and reliable way, I suppose.
Amazing. So that was Go Correct, Flash Academy, and EF Immersion Challenge, am I right? Well, congratulations for your nominations, and I hope you all win tonight. You're all winners in our eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Already winners, but we hope to see one of you later as well.
Right,
after
enjoy the ceremony.
Good luck. Good luck.
Good luck. Wow, digital innovation, what a category.
I know, some really, really great entries this year. Yeah, it's a real pleasure talking to, it's lovely, isn't it, to see the faces behind these products we've read about and heard about, so yeah.
It kind of, you know, when you think of the term digital innovation, you sort of have these preconceived ideas of what they might be.
Yeah.
But talking to them, you realize it's all about complementing and supplementing the teacher, the classroom.
Yeah.
It's not about removing the human element in learning.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to stop you, Cheer, but we've got a little queue building here, and I think they're ready to join us.
And this is, these are finalists from the second category we have of the evening.
Category. Could you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your product?
Well, my name's Justin Harris, and I'm here with my co-writer Paul Leeming, and we wrote a book called On Task, which is a task-based language teaching approach to sort of a general English language teaching textbook, basically. Yeah.
And you have been paired up with someone else who's also written a task-based learning course. Those who have just tuned in, we are in the category of excellence in course innovation, and here are two finalists in that category. Marcus, tell us a bit about your product.
Sure, thank you. I'm Marcos, and my co-author Chris is here as well, Chris Valvona, and we wrote a book called Widgets Inc., which is a task-based simulation that follows the students through a kind of product cycle where they imagine that they're working at a company, developing products and doing market research and those kinds of things. So it's also a task-based course, also out of Japan, which I think is... we've both flown in from Japan. Separately, separate books.
So is task-based learning really popular in Japan? Come closer to me. I'm all right. I won't bite. Is task-based learning really popular in Japan at the moment?
It's not really yet, I don't think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been banging that drum for, in our case, 10 years now. Our book is actually the second edition. It's the kind of thing it's been very difficult to develop into a textbook, because task-based learning, the whole point of task-based learning is to allow students freedom to sort of use language in sort of an open-ended way, rather than pre-teach a lot of language and then restrict them to that. So as you can imagine, that's really difficult to develop a textbook that does that, because by nature textbooks sequence language, right? So in our case, what we did is we used a task complexity framework so instead of using a grammar syllabus or a functional notional syllabus, we have a task-based, a task complexity syllabus, where the students do more and more complex tasks through the stages as they go through. That's really the innovation, I think, that the main innovation of our book in particular. And actually Justin uses a different framework, but is also a task-based framework. Maybe you can explain.
Well, yeah, basically we borrowed from the Willis framework for task-based language teaching, which is the pre-main post-task sort of approach to teaching. But we added into it an input task cycle. So we follow students, there's a common criticism against TBLT, especially for lower level learners, in that they might not have any language to begin with. What kind of task can they do there then? So what we do is we sort of provide some of the language in this input reading, which also has its own pre-task. So students are like guessing about the reading that's coming up, and then they'll do a post-task based on that. And then they're going to do a task which is semi-related to it, but is different, so that they're using their own language still. And any sort of actual language, most textbooks often, this is the language you're going to use, that's placed at the back of the book. And it's there if the teacher thinks that after a while they might need that at some stage throughout the task or at the end of the task. But it's not really a main part of the book. It's a focus on actual authentic language production.
That's amazing, because every time I think about task-based learning, you often hear about the sort of the lighter versions of TBL where the teacher inputs lots and lots of language. So when you think about the pre-task, you often think about the input of language in the pre-task, whereas what you're talking about here is not language input in the pre-task. Your pre-task is a task on its own.
Well, yeah, if you like to think of it, I suppose the input task cycle might be considered a pre-task, as kind of a pre-task to the output task. We've got this thing, we've got an input task, output task cycle. So we've just basically taken that James and David's idea and sort of...
Scaffolding?
There's scaffolding, yeah, we're scaffolding throughout. And Jane's been really good about it. In fact, she said at one stage to me that the cool thing about the book is that teachers are going to be doing TBLT without knowing they're doing TBLT, which is a problem, especially in Japan. A lot of people don't really know about TBLT, so it's just built into the book. It's yeah.
And so your book's called On Task.
Yes.
Marcos, your book is called Widgets Inc. I've been wanting to ask this question, but what's the significance of the title Widgets Inc? Is it full of widgets?
Yeah, so I said that the students simulate working for a company. The simulation we've set up is that the company that they're hired is called Widgets Inc. And it's a kind of fictitious startup company where the students then have to develop a product. And it's kind of the focus is on developing a kind of interesting creative product. So something like glasses with windshield wipers or something. So they develop the product, and then they do market research on that product, find out what people think about it. Then they do a focus group, and then they do a commercial and so on. So they take those products and they sort of develop through. And at the end, they have a final stage in which they do a job interview. And what's interesting is that then in that job interview, they make CVs and interview each other, but they're talking about real things that they've done. It's not, I mean, it's simulated work, but it's they can actually talk about it. So they, for example, they interview each other, asking questions like, oh, it says here you were the project manager for a focus group or a marketing campaign. Can you tell me about that? And they can, because they've literally done it as a simulation. So then the student can talk about, it was very difficult because people didn't give us their true impression, or whatever it is that they say. It's a meaningful answer, right? So it's all about creating, opportunities for meaningful language to actually be used. So it's kind of at the core of TBLT. And as you can imagine, it's difficult to sort of, put TBLT into a textbook framework. It usually doesn't work. You can't kind of do half communication in a sense, because if you're doing a pre-task, for example, where it's input, let's say, for example, you have the students watch a video of somebody giving a presentation, then you can ask them to do a presentation, and that's fine. But if you're pre-teaching language items, you're really restricting them to using those particular language items. So then you can tell them, do a presentation, and even if you tell them, oh, don't worry about, you don't have to.
They're inhibited to experiment.
Of course, but of course they're going to use it because you've just taught it. So you're kind of restricting them.
They feel
anyway.
they should.
Yeah.
Prime them.
To do something that's open-ended has always been the problem with TBLT. Yeah.
They're saying what they think they're supposed to say. They're just acting for the teacher, really, and in some ways. So.
And in that way, you're kind of truly getting them to negotiate meaning for themselves in a really good sort of scenario that you've created for them, where they can build up into, like you say, job interviews and learn about employability skills, like life skills.
And do more and more complex things, because, doing, for example, a product pitch, followed by a focus group, followed by a presentation, followed by an advertising campaign, followed by a job interview. You can see how the complexity rises, right? But because they're talking about essentially the same kind of thing again and again, you're repeating the task. You're not repeating the task exactly, but you're sort of mirroring the task type as you go.
It's going round and round without going.
Yeah, and you can increase complexity quite quickly and quite far.
Well, as much as I'd love to continue this meaningful communication, unfortunately, we're going to have to move on to the next people. So all that remains is to wish you good luck. And
good luck.
maybe we'll see you later here after the ceremony.
See you later.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Do you use much task-based learning in your teaching, Kelly?
Well, I think we all do, don't we? What about you?
I would like to think that I favour the deep end version of task-based learning, where there isn't too much pre-teaching of vocabulary. But I can see why some people find that perhaps a bit scary, or perhaps not like the typical lesson.
I think it's something kind of that comes with confidence as a new teacher. I don't know, maybe I'm speaking personally, maybe it's because I'm a bit of a control freak, I'm not entirely sure, but you feel a little bit apprehensive to move out of your comfort zone of the PPP model that you've learned, and then and I think times have changed, since I did my initial teacher training course. Perhaps it's not promoted as much as it was, but as you grow in confidence and you want to give as much autonomy as possible to the learners and let them guide the learning, then I guess even if you don't know you're doing it, you are taking a task-based learning approach.
It's exciting to see two products in excellence in course innovation that are based on task-based learning.
It was a nice surprise to see those.
Let's meet the other finalists from that same category, excellence in course innovation.
They get so busy chatting in the queue, and then we have to bring them over. Come on over.
Join us. I don't bite. So you are?
Prithvi Shrestha.
And who are you here representing? What product are you representing here today?
It's LV170 Business Communication Skills. Well, sorry, Communication Skills for Business Management from the Open University.
Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Okay, it's a course that's targeted for people who want to enhance their English language as well as learn more about management concepts. And we take them through case studies and, written assignments from students, workplace communication and so on. Yes.
So what communication skills do you think are important to someone in business? Could you break it down for us?
Right. Okay. There are certain ones which we focus on, like negotiation in the workplace, and also like presentations, which are quite common, but also written communication, which is around knowing their audience well and the context. Those are the ones.
Communication is a huge part of business, isn't it?
Yes, it's a huge part of everything, and there's this place is absolutely bustling now, and I'm struggling to hear our lovely finalists and what they're saying. So I'm semi-lip reading here, so I'll have to listen back to the recording to find out exactly
I'll
what
get them
you're
to come closer.
about.
Come closer,
Yes,
come closer.
yes. It's a good thing. It's because it's all kicking
It's really
off.
busy here. I don't know
Yes.
if you can feel the electric
Yes.
atmosphere going on.
Very
But we're just talking about business communication, and it's really interesting because when we talk about teaching English, we're now looking at the need to go beyond grammar, beyond lexis and pronunciation, to actually look at communication strategies, and that seems to be what your course is focusing on: communication skills, soft skills.
Yes, but also we teach basic concepts in business and management, like carrying out a SWOT analysis, for example. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in a business context or in workplace. Also, knowing more about the environment, business environment. What influences businesses.
So the subject is business and the vehicle is English.
Yes.
Yeah.
We integrate both English language and the content of business and management at the undergraduate level.
Exciting times.
Very
yes.
exciting. And
Our next guest. Yeah, I think you can probably reach a little more easily than me. Yeah, you carry on. No, you're doing a grand job here.
So I'm Amanda Guppy and I'm representing Compass. We've come from Mexico, from Richmond, and we have prepared a series that is aimed at the bilingual market for primary school students. So this is a series that...
Is it the one that asks the big questions of life? Life's big questions?
That's right,
Yes.
yeah. We work with big questions.
Yeah.
And we spent a long time preparing these big questions. We probably spent 6 months working just on the
How
on the
did you
questions.
think of the big questions? Like, how did you pinpoint those?
Well, it was very important to us to look at questions that would be relevant for any child.
Yes. Yeah.
And we also divided them into various areas. So we divided them into me, and we divided them into society, science, and what was the other one? And sort of humankind sort of issues. And we also did take into account the language, of course, the different levels. But most of all, we went for getting questions that would intrigue students and get them involved in their learning, because it's a very high level course. So if they're not motivated and intrigued by the questions, then...
And who better to discuss life's big questions with than children? They're the best people to talk about these questions with. You always get the most imaginative answers, and they take you to a place that you weren't expecting.
Exactly, and they're really pleasantly surprised to be working with those kind of questions. They love it.
Yeah.
And again, we're looking at life skills and soft skills, like critical thinking skills here. So, whether we're talking about business communication with adults or young learners, we're again looking at communication and communicating about issues just beyond just language alone, I think.
Absolutely,
Yeah. I mean, what we've heard from the kids is that they the big questions is a big pull. You really kind of nailed it. It's a big pull, and the way that the program works is that the same big question runs across all the modules. They're seeing the big question from all kinds of different angles and using different skills. So that they're using reading, and they're using language skills and writing skills and phonics. And
Great.
Hi Chair, hi Callie.
Hiya.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm
too.
here representing Capital School of English. I'm Spencer.
Hi.
I'm the co-founder of the school. I'm here with my wife videoing you, so have a wave. And we've got thousands of people watching around the world. You're live linking, so thank you very much for
Exciting.
this opportunity.
No, it's our pleasure.
We're here representing a product called Future Success,
Oh, yes.
which was our brainchild probably 18 months, 2 years ago, because we have a lot of students attending our own school between the ages 16 to 24, so that difficult age where they're at a crossroads in their life.
Yeah.
But very importantly, they're coming to our language centre with very high levels of general English. So the next challenge, the next question is what next?
Yeah.
And these kids are coming to us, and they're often from very, very interesting backgrounds, in backgrounds that we don't know over a 2-week or a 3-week or a 4-week program. So we designed a program very much based on 21st century skills, but the element of surprise is that we have approached local businesses, national businesses, where they have a real problem or a project that they need international student input in. So we targeted this age range because they're coming to us now with B1, B2, C1, C2 level, and they need challenging. So we're getting students from scientific, technological, engineering, arts and mathematics background, putting them together, and it's like alchemy. It creates this amazing environment.
Professional matchmaking, it's like mutually
Absolutely.
beneficial. And what are the businesses and organisations coming
So
back
we've
with? What's their
worked
feedback
with
been?
charities, we've worked with social media companies, worked with marketing companies. We've also worked with what can seem as a very dull company on paper, a steel flooring company, but they've worked on some of the most iconic buildings in the world. For example, the Burj Khalifa, Manchester City Football Stadium. And these are companies that are now coming to us as a result of our project.
What's their feedback like on the...
We've had
on the
167 students running over the last 18 months on the course. The feedback is immense, and they're coming to us saying, this is what we need.
Yeah.
We're not here to
future.
learn the present perfect. We're not here to learn the first conditional again and again and again.
Yeah.
We're here to use what we know, but very importantly, bring their skills and their opportunities to a group. So the groups are very international. They're from very different backgrounds, lots of different nationalities, and it's bringing their language as a driver, but they're not even thinking about the language.
Yeah, it's a byproduct.
It's
of
a
their learning,
byproduct.
yeah.
And for us, it's such an exciting time. I wrote this on the back of a cigarette packet
There you go.
nearly
You've
2
said
years
everything.
ago, and here we are today, hopefully receiving an ELTon. But thank you very much for inviting us to this special award.
And do those relationships ever continue with the students and the organisations? Do they?
Yeah, we
do
have an
they go
alumni
into the
system.
future? Yeah.
Everything is online. We have it supported by Google. Sorry to push Google.
Name drop.
But everything there is on a platform that we've created. And it's a special thanks to the whole team back in Bournemouth, Cheryl, James, Leanne, Paulina, everybody who's believed in us.
Yeah, amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I think, again, we're hearing this trend that we're not talking about English for English's sake. We're talking about English as a tool for global communication, for trade, for education, for travel, English for communicating effectively across boundaries.
Students are now traveling to EFL destinations around the world at a younger age with higher levels of general English. Why are we repeating the same things?
Yeah.
So at my
Challenge
school,
them.
we have taken away desks and tables. We've created learning hubs.
I've seen them with the bean bags.
We are the bean bags and the
Chill.
grass and the chilled out area.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Kids today, 16 to 24, they were brought up through this technological revolution. We are the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
We've got to keep pace with these guys. And why not make learning a language a very enjoyable experience, but not become the main reason why they're there?
Absolutely. I couldn't have put it better myself. To be
Amazing.
honest. And I
What
shouldn't be able to.
fantastic energy too.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
getting really excited about the ceremony now.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your nominations
Yeah, well
and making
done,
it into the
everybody.
finals. I hope you have a great time tonight at the ceremony.
Yes, enjoy yourselves. Have fun.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
very
much. Looks like we've got Paul coming back
We've got
over.
Paul
so
coming
probably
back.
time for your Twitter takeover.
It is time for my Twitter takeover. Just to remind you, if you're just joining us, I'm tweeting with the username @BCELTons, #ELTons, throughout the red carpet interviews and also during the ceremony. So do follow us on Twitter, or you can watch the event live stream on Facebook Live or on englishagenda.britishcouncil.org. With that, I'm going to hand over to Paul for the rest of the interviews.
Thank you very much, Chia. Enjoy the rest of the
Not
evening.
goodbye, it's au revoir.
I know, yes.
And
We'll see you
bonjour.
later. We'll see you later. Hi. All right.
Hey, yes, good. Having fun here.
Good.
Would you like to introduce our
Yes,
next?
we've got Andrew Nye. Andrew, welcome.
Hey,
And
hi,
Callie.
I'll have one of those. nice
Andrew,
to see you again this year.
Andrew, you're from Cambridge. I have to say it right. Cambridge Assessment English. Thank you. Changed. And you're here. Well, we're interviewing you because you are partners with the British Council for the Local Innovation Awards.
Right. We've been sponsoring the Local Innovation Award for a number of years now. Yeah.
And I mean, over those years, what kind of changes have you seen with the Local Innovation Awards? What kind of themes, if you like, have kind of been emerging?
So it's an award that we love sponsoring it because it's finding local problems and innovating around those problems and finding solutions to those problems is I think the best way for innovation to happen. And what we've noticed over the years is that the kind of level of innovative solutions is really becoming more and more interesting. So there's some really interesting stuff that is up for nominations this year. So the Hands Up project is one of them. There's an interesting project in Scotland with mothers and children.
Oh yeah, the Stepping Stones.
Stepping Stones, yeah. And I think, you know, I work in an innovation team in Cambridge, and it's very hard to try and find global solutions that are applicable all around the world. So I think innovation tends to start with local pain points and understanding what the pain points are that learners and teachers are suffering from, and then finding solutions to those.
Yeah. I think in general, ELT is an industry that embraces, and I think that's really obvious in this category. And a lot of the submissions are based on goodwill and people wanting positive outcomes for people who really need positive outcomes. So it's one of my favourite categories.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, I think it's that idea that it's slightly more, it's more tailor-made. You know, I mean, it's very easy to take kind of off-the-shelf solutions, and a lot of the time they're kind of just placed.
Exactly.
And you know, the context doesn't work. Whereas I think this really sort of highlights that. I think, you know.
That's absolutely right. A lot of the work that we do in Cambridge around innovation involves finding from our network of overseas offices or overseas centres, finding a particular problem or as I say, pain point, and instead of just jumping to a solution, which is the really easy thing to do, it's about really understanding what's causing that problem, and I think that's the best way to actually really shift the dial and move things forward.
With these submissions, it's a matter of they're not necessarily being all the resources in place and having to use your imagination, put your heart and soul into a little bit to find the right answer and the right outcome for everyone.
Yeah, and I think that's the other interesting thing about innovation, actually, that often you find the best solutions where resources are most constrained.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Because I think one of the mistakes that organisations like Cambridge can make is that, you know, if you throw enough money at a problem, you think you'll solve it.
Yeah.
Well, actually the opposite is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, thanks ever so much for coming along, and we'll see you later. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Yeah, it's always lovely to see you. Thank you. Awesome.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think you're right, it is. I think, you know, with local innovation, it really is that kind of idea of taking something and really thinking about what the problems are and how some of the things that are there available, how they can be adapted and how they can be used.
It's like the grassroots category.
Yeah,
definitely. I think we're going to hear a little bit more now from some of our finalists, which is great. Hey.
Hello. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Hello, welcome. Do you want to come around this way a little bit so we can see? So, can you just introduce yourselves and tell us about your innovation, please?
Okay, my name is Victoria, but I'm representing Jennifer Emelife, who has been nominated for the Local Innovations Award. Our website is Teach for Change in Nigeria. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Amanda Boyd. I work for Cambridge University Press, and we're here today representing the primary social and science course for bilingualism in Spain.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Thea Cameron Faulkner, and I'm here representing the ESOL Stepping Stones, which is a mother and baby ESOL class.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. So, how should we do this? Should we do it one by one? So, you're representing Yes, so I've been reading a bit about this website and it sounds really, really interesting. They have a WhatsApp group for teachers so they can disseminate instructional material. Can you tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, it's an educational website that is specifically designed for under-reserved teachers. So this educational website contains teaching guides, teaching strategies for teachers of literature in Nigeria. Most of these teachers are not well trained and they need, ideas about how to teach literature, that would, be able to talk about the issues in Nigeria. So these strategies help the teachers to be able to allow learners talk, to be involved in the classroom, and be able to allow them come up with, problem-solving skills that will address the problems in Nigeria. So that is what this website is about. Yeah.
So it's empowering. It's bridging the gap, the inequality gap in Nigeria. And talking of empowering, Paul, you might have to reach over with your microphone. You are empowering women to participate more fully in society, am I right?
Exactly, because we found that there was a major issue with mothers from low-income backgrounds in the UK and in other countries too. So they couldn't access the mother and baby groups because they didn't have the English language skills, and they couldn't access the ESOL classes because they had their babies, and so there weren't always creche facilities. So what we did is create a program that brought those two things together. So it's stay and play, mums from low-income backgrounds, teaching them ESOL, teaching them, helping them with parenting skills, communication skills with their babies, socialising, and so reducing isolation. And as you say, exactly, a key thing to what we're doing is empowering those mothers to use the English that they have to practice and to get to know other people as well.
Yeah.
Well, has there been, was there any resistance, or has there been any kind of resistance, or I don't want to say suspicion, but did you have to work quite hard to kind of bring those people in to involve them in these classes?
Absolutely not. It's been amazing. We brought the program out maybe about 6 months ago now, and the feedback that we've had has been overwhelmingly positive. It's as though there's been that need there that hasn't been filled. And we were talking earlier about the fact that there's always issues in the world that need to be fixed, and you think, okay, here's something, surely somebody's done something about this issue. And then you look into it, you think, well, no. So what we've done is created resources that are free. We have training, so any Sure Start Centre, any museum, any school can deliver this program. So no, it's been really good.
Great, well done. Okay, so the bilingual project in Madrid, so you've been developing, so it's teacher resources and also learner, it's kind of teacher resources and kind of learner resources.
Full courses for students and teacher resources as well. And a very different situation, a different approach to innovation, I suppose, in this category, because it's a very mature market. I think it's almost 2 decades now of bilingualism in Spain, and there are a lot of materials out there. So we decided to focus on something that really could be summarized by simplicity. We went back to basics and we put ourselves in the shoes of the students and tried to come up with something that they would just love and that would empower them and bring out that passion for science. We've worked with a team of authors who are all active teachers. So they're teaching in the morning and they've been working on the materials in the afternoon with us, and we're just very proud of the results.
That's a real coup, isn't it? Because I think sometimes with materials writing, people, they start off in teaching, they become a writer, and then they become quite detached sometimes from the ground, the shop level, shop floor, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's almost like when you're writing and teaching simultaneously, you get to pilot what you're doing as well, and it gives you a much clearer idea of what's going to work and what needs tweaking.
That's exactly it. And a lot of the people in the editorial team have been teachers, but quite a long time ago. And so it's been wonderful working with teachers. And what's central to the course is getting the children to ask the questions. It's not a course about them sitting down answering questions. So the course structure is designed to allow the children to focus on what they're really interested in. And we were really encouraged by the teachers that would work. And the results so far have been very positive.
Fabulous.
It all sounds great. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time looking at all of the categories and all of the finalists for this, and they're all amazing, really, for me. So thank you.
And you should all be so proud of what you've done.
Definitely.
Whatever happens tonight, you're all winners. Just have a great night, enjoy yourselves, and maybe we'll see you later to the ceremony.
Thanks very much. Okay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Okay.
Lovely.
Yeah. No, I mean, really interesting. A lot of interesting stuff.
Yes. Oh, it looks like we've got our next
we've
people
got some
coming over.
more
We've got our other
finalists.
two finalists
We
from
have.
this category. A couple
Do
more
you want to come
exciting
and join
projects
us? Hello.
to talk about.
Hello. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Very good. Nick, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Paul?
I'm well, thank you. Do you want to just introduce yourselves and tell us about your innovation?
Yeah, I've got your book.
Oh,
So I'm Diana Sutton, I'm Director of the Bell Foundation, and we have, with the Learning and Work Institute, developed resources for ESOL tutors in prisons.
Okay, thank you. Nick?
So I'm the founder and director of the Hands Up project, and we connect Palestinian children to a team of volunteers all around the world, and we run a playwriting competition, an annual playwriting competition for Palestinian kids.
Hey, thank you.
And has that been judged yet? Has the winner been decided?
We've just done the second round of that, the second
Oh,
year.
cool.
So
Oh, okay. So
last year we had 88 entries. Last year we had 88. Last year we had 180 entries.
And there's 5 in each group, am I right? Or does that include?
So there's
those?
one overall winner who came to the UK.
Yep.
But 16 plays will be brought from Gaza to the West Bank to perform their plays in the West Bank.
Wow.
And then about 30 of them will get in the book. So this is the book from last year's competition. There we are. And there'll be another book coming out with plays from this year. So.
And it's a cast of 5, is that right? Did
Oh
I
yes,
read
sorry,
that
yeah, 5.
I think we got a little bit lost in communication.
So it's five children,
Yeah.
5 minutes.
So I knew there was a 5 theme.
Yeah, there's a five theme in there. Yeah.
5 children, 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. When I kind of was reading about both of your kind of innovations, I mean, obviously both incredibly challenging in terms of kind of working with prisoners or people who've been involved in the criminal justice system. Obviously, working in Palestine is a huge challenge. What were the challenges? Obviously, I mean, it's a very broad question. What were the challenges for you? But how did you kind of overcome them? What have been some of the responses to the challenges that you've had?
Well, a lot of ESOL tutors in prisons are obviously quite isolated. It's quite a small community. Also, a lot of resources in this sector are online, and of course there is no internet access in prisons. So actually producing something in the old way on paper is really actually rather important. And also many prisoners are now locked up for 23 out of 24 hours, giving very limited time for actual teaching. So also, if you imagine that you don't speak English and you're in a prison, and then most of the resources for teaching are online and about how do you go on holiday, well, they're not exactly that relevant. So
exactly context specific.
Not exactly context specific. So being able to understand the menu or forms, or actually how you can learn some English so you can communicate with fellow prisoners or prison officers is really very, very important.
I mean, is there? It seems like there's also an element of kind of post-prison, kind of when preparing them for that kind of life, or preparing them for their English levels outside of prison as well. Is that the case?
That's right. So this resource does adaptation of what's called the citizens curriculum in terms of resourcing, so about finance, about access to services and so on, so that not only can you find your way around in prison, but also can help you when you on release.
So it's preparing people on multiple levels in the sense of their language development, but also for wider participation in society when the time comes for them to leave prison and reintegrate.
That's right. And of course you may or may not know the history of our organisation, because it was started by Frank Bell after the Second World War, who was a prisoner of war in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, and they started an undercover university, and they were not allowed to teach subjects to each other, so on little bits of cigarette paper, and he came to Cambridge and he founded Bell Language School.
I didn't know that.
English
I didn't know
language
that.
teaching.
That's not in the
Yeah, so for us it's particularly pertinent to be able to continue the history of the organisation.
It's almost come full circle.
Indeed, indeed.
What about, have you got any stories in particular that you'd like to share? I mean, working with children who've come from really, really troubled backgrounds, is there any one story that you could share to inspire us to find out more about
Well, I
what
mean,
you're
I
doing?
think the reason why this project has been so popular with children in Gaza is because, you know, there's a massive problem there in that people can't leave. It's very difficult to leave Gaza. And it's very difficult. I think a lot of young people in Gaza have this feeling that the world is against them, you know, that the media is against them. And so I think one of the most satisfying experiences I've ever had as a teacher in my 25 years as a teacher and a teacher trainer is going to Gaza and giving children this book and saying, this is...
You made this.
You made
it. You made this, and people all around the world are going to read these plays, and you know, it's very satisfying. I had a very nice email from somebody in Peru. I was at a conference in Lima in Peru, and I presented this work to them there. And one of the teachers said she'd really like to try out the plays with her students. So she sent me an email, and she had videos of her children performing plays that were made by Palestinian kids.
Wow. And did they get to
and then
see
they
this?
sent them back to the kids in Palestine. So it's a lovely
Again,
sort of...
come full
yeah.
circle. It's really lovely.
So we're trying to do more and more of this, just link children together, because that's, I mean, they're just children like any other children in the world, and they just want to be heard, and this is what we're doing in the Hands Up project.
I mean, it's been going for how many years? Quite a few years now.
We've been a registered charity for about 3 years now, and we've been running for about four or 5 years. And we're expanding in lots of different directions, and it's all going very well. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks very much for coming along and talking to us, and good luck. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Well, I mean,
Thank
neither of you are strangers to this red carpet, are you? So
no,
maybe,
I know. We've seen you before. I know. I've seen you before. Yeah. No, I remember.
Yeah, remember.
Okay. Good luck.
Well done.
To you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Any way you like is fine. Okay.
Hello.
Some
Hello.
more lovely finalists.
Very well. Yes, I remember you.
You don't, never.
I do, from Lisbon.
Oh, there's lots of excitement going on here.
Our project, they were already grabbing our book.
Well, you see,
I
that's
think
evidence.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh,
we were
okay,
sharing the
we know
story
about
of
this
the book.
So Cristina Ferrara, tell us, she's a big celebrity in Portugal,
Cristina
right?
Ferrara has just been elected for the 5th time the most influential woman in Portugal. She has nearly 20% of the population following her on Instagram. She has won everything, she has done everything, nothing to prove, but she had one handicap. She couldn't speak English with confidence. So she decided to learn English, and Cambridge Assessment English helped her learn English and prove her skills to the world. And then the book is the result of that process. So we follow her, we share her what motivated her, we share her struggles too, and this motivates other adult learners, and also her favorite topics: inner beauty, fashion, my Portugal, things about Portugal. So it's a great book. You can learn English, and you can also learn how Cristina learned English. And it's a partnership between Cambridge Assessment English and a Portuguese publisher. So it was thanks to the publisher that we were able to tell this story. It's great.
Okay, thank you. Could you tell us who you are and about your innovation, please?
Yes, and first of all, I should say hi to my family, my students. Right now, I think my class, there's back and forth that might be watching. My name's Taylor Sapp, and my book is called Stories Without End, and it's a learner-based resource. It's a creative book meant for reading and writing skills, unfinished stories that students can in. Sort of like writing prompts, but there's a lot more detail to them. That they are legitimate stories, reading stories that students can end, and it's meant to cause discussion. It's meant to engage reading skills and writing skills, and there's activities. And my background, I'm a teacher. I'm still a teacher, and I teach a variety of skills. I also teach research, and one of the reasons I came up with this book, besides I love reading and writing, I also was trying to teach research and writing skills in general, and the skill of elaboration, the ability just to write and expand on ideas. And there's a lot of research that creative writing, creative reading is one of the most important techniques to develop the ability to write in general, like academic or any form. So my book's based on this idea. It's meant to be fun, it's meant to be interactive, and it's also meant to connect these two things, reading and writing. Especially, I have a lot of students that they say they don't like to read, or they say they don't like to write, and for years, I've worked on these ideas of trying to get students interested and motivated and to connect both those skills. So that's what the book is all about.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I can't hear very well. It's so noisy.
It's very noisy, isn't it?
Lovely,
It is.
lovely,
It
yes,
is kind of
perfect,
noisy.
so
Yeah.
That was Stories Without End.
Stories
Yes.
Without End. I'm Patrick from the BBC. Hello.
I'm Patrick from BBC, and we're here for English in a Minute. And English in a Minute aims to examine a commonly confused item of language in a minute and teach that to learners. So.
With that, I just I mean, what was, I mean, how did you kind of find, first of all, the kind of the themes for that students were having problems with, and how did you kind of condense that down into something that would be useful in 1 minute?
Yeah, I think because we were all experienced language teachers, we were aware of the typical problematic areas for students. We decided on a list of possible topics, and then we chose the topics that could be done justice in a minute. So in a way, that was the challenge, trying to balance covering something in 1 minute, but at the same time not doing it justice so as not to oversimplify it.
It's interesting. I mean, they're all very interesting. Stories Without End, I know.
I didn't hear you saying the name in Portuguese. Can you pronounce it?
If you tell us how, we can try.
Falar é fácil. Falar em inglês é fácil.
É fácil.
There you go.
How was I? That's okay.
It's okay.
We can practice.
You can practice a bit
Okay.
I should know.
We'll try.
Thank you very much. We're kind of running a little bit behind time, so you've told us about your products very quickly, very efficiently. Thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
That literally was English in a minute for you there, wasn't it? You had about 10 minutes, so sorry about that. Yeah. Thank you. Good luck with everything.
Okay, good luck.
Hope to see you here. Thank you. Cool. I love that English in a minute one.
Yeah.
It's great
Hello.
for people on
you
the
all
go.
alone?
I'm still
Are you?
talking to Paul.
Really?
I'm going to talk to you guys.
I could maybe see if someone.
Well, I think because the category you're a finalist for is perhaps different from the categories that they're finalists for, so yeah.
No worries.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Can you tell us who you are and about your innovation, please?
I'm Rachel Watson. I'm a publisher at Pearson Education. The innovation is the Marvel Cinematic Readers for teens and young adults. And yes, that's it, really.
That must have been fun to work on.
Massively fun, working with a partner like Disney and Marvel in particular at the moment, who are one of the biggest global licenses in the world. They have a very, very rich archive of assets and materials for us to mine. It's something that teenagers really relate to and that they can reinforce in their experiences when they go to the cinema as well.
Great stimulus, the visual side to it. So who's your favourite superhero? Do you have one?
Who's my favourite superhero?
You're on the spot.
It's a tricky one. Well, Thor for obvious reasons until he got quite fat in this last one.
He comes back though. It's all works out in the end.
I think he comes back. No, Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's a really fantastic storyline with a set of characters which really move between. The tween ages right up to adulthood, and I think that gives a lot of access points for different learners as well. So yeah.
Did you find, because obviously the film franchise is huge, but I mean the Marvel sort of comics were the original, originally they were comics and then obviously became films. Did you kind of worry perhaps when the films were there about creating something that was a reader where you've got teenage learners perhaps who are used to the films and how they would kind of relate then to a graded reader?
Well, we were pretty loyal to the scripts. In fact, we worked from the scripts and directly from the films. So the books are based on the cinematic universe, which is different to the comic book universe if you're a Marvel fan. So they are loyal to that, and they do reflect what happens in the film. So they should be okay in terms of the content.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're great.
They will undoubtedly pull us up if we get something wrong. But the Disney team are very good on helping and supporting to make sure that you're on point with how the license is represented, and they were very, very understanding and supportive about the language limitations. Obviously, we don't have access to all of the language when we're writing graded readers, but they were very sympathetic and understanding and want to make sure that kids around the world have access to their materials at a point where they can get the best out of them. Yeah.
Great.
They've definitely tapped into something of the moment as well.
Yeah, no, I think this is the thing. When you're talking about teen learners, motivation is a key thing.
Yeah,
we need to be trying to stimulate learners to spend more time in the company of English, and readers are a perfect place for that to happen. If they can do that at home, in their own time, with the ebooks, it makes it far more accessible for them. So that's what we're hoping for. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you, and good luck. Okay. I like Marvel. Have you got a favourite? Do you like Marvel?
Yes and no. I think my favourite is, I think she's called Jean Grey, the one with telekinetic powers,
Okay.
telepathic powers,
Okay.
using the power of the mind to achieve things, and
Yeah.
not necessarily the manipulative aspect of it,
No, but
yeah,
okay.
harnessing the power of the mind to make things happen. I think is
Okay.
one of my favourites. Yeah.
Cool. I think we've got some more finalists who are joining us, if they're coming over. Okay. Or maybe not. I think, are we finished? Or maybe we've run out of time. No more. Okay.
What's happened?
So I think we've come to the end. I think it's time.
Oh, okay. So I thought we'd lost
for
connection there
people-
for
no,
a
no.
moment. Sorry about that, guys. We're
No.
getting mixed messages. Time to wrap it up, is it?
I think it is.
Okay, so we'll be back here.
I think we will after the ceremony.
We're definitely going to be here after the ceremony. Whether we'll be here again before, I'm not sure, but it was really great having a chat to some of the finalists, if not as many as we'd hoped. But we'll try and catch some more later
Try and
on.
hopefully, if we can try and catch some of them maybe afterwards if we have time.
Absolutely.
Then great.
Okay.
Or hang on, maybe.
No, it really was a case of mixed messages. You see, we're interviewing all these
Looks like
people
we have
about
got,
communication.
time. Okay, hi.
I think we need to
Hello.
work on ourselves a little bit here.
Okay. So we've been given some more time.
Yeah,
great.
I think, yeah.
Okay, let's keep
Okay,
going.
so let's
can
go
you
for
tell
it.
us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, why you're fabulous?
Okay, my name's Richard Caldwell. I'm the author of a syllabus for listening decoding in the teacher resources category. I'm based in Birmingham, UK.
Okay.
My name is Marek Kiczkowiak. I'm the founder of TEFL Equity Advocates and Academy, and I'm nominated for the ultimate guide to teaching English as a lingua franca in teacher resources as well.
That's good. That's good.
My name's Peter Watkins. I'm here with Cambridge University Press, and we have a book about teaching and developing reading skills.
I've got a question.
Go.
So when I was reading about your submission, it said about the shape of words. I could get my head around that. But it also said about the colour and I think flavour of words.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So colours and flavours are more from my previous book, Phonology for Listening. But if I can just develop sound shapes of words. So all words have multiple sound shapes.
Okay.
And which I present using a metaphor of the greenhouse, the garden, and the jungle. Greenhouse is very careful speech, like everyone, always, likes this. That's greenhouse. The garden is everyone always likes this. Okay? But there's the jungle, which is where we need to train our listeners, students to be better listeners, where everyone always may become Evernoise likes this. So that's what my book is about. It's about teaching rather than testing. Teaching the different sound shapes and the sound substance of English.
I can imagine when you're with the learners and they kind of realise, they have that light bulb moment where they're like, oh, that's what that person was saying to me, when they realise, when they see the stream of sound decoded like that.
Yes, that's right. Very often our learners are left bamboozled and feeling very insecure about themselves as learners because they don't understand, can't pick up and decode the words that they ought to know from their reading and writing. And so yes, there's very much a lot of light bulb moments in this approach. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, great.
Marek, English as a lingua franca. Tell us about that. Tell us about some of the challenges that you've had with, I mean, I know you've been on quite a long journey with this. I know you and I know the work that you've been doing. And now the stage that you're at now, how is that kind of being received? Are people kind of finally on board with it, do you think? Or?
Yeah, I think surprisingly, quite a lot of people are. I think, more and more people I think all of us know that English is the global language of communication, the global international language. And, the research has been going on for over 20 years now, maybe 30 years. And I think there is enough now that we can try to put it in practice. And I think for me as a teacher, it's really important to get practical ideas. So what I try to do with my course is to, to present people with research so they know where these ideas come from, but also to give them practical things so they can actually apply it in the classroom, give them lesson plans, frameworks for lessons, and so on.
I mean, it's good to talk to both of you. Actually, I mean, both of your work to me seems quite important. I mean, at the moment, it's very important. Certainly, with English as a lingua franca, with a different kind of reading, it seems like it's the right time or an important time for this to be happening. What surprised me was that it hasn't really kind of happened before.
Exactly. If you look at the last time a book was written for teachers about reading, that actually sort of gave activities and things to do in the classroom, you're going back 25 years or so, actually. And if you think how much reading has changed, and also the body of research that's available to draw on now. So we were really keen to put together a product that actually was research informed, and that teachers could make informed choices by giving them the research evidence, but still transforming that into ways that were really practical and easy to use in the classroom.
Great. I mean, both great things. I mean, well, and it's gone now, but yeah. Thanks very much, and good luck.
Thank you ever so much for telling us.
Okay, I think we are now.
We are now. Is this for real?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we do have to stop now. So.
Okay, it was just one thing I was going to pick up on what they were just saying there about the functionality. So the judging process for the ELTons is really, really stringent process. It all happens behind closed doors, and completely, everyone is completely in the dark. Nobody knows what each other's doing, and in fact, even
no one knows who other judges are sometimes, because someone said, "Oh, are you a judge?" So I mean, obviously
that's
it's
right.
not. So
that's right. It's all a little bit in cahoots, and actually the judges themselves, they don't know who the winners are until they're announced tonight.
Exactly.
So it makes it even more exciting.
Indeed. So
that's it from us for now. Sorry for the confusion earlier. There was a little bit of mixed messages, but that's always the way. It's because it's such a hustling, bustling atmosphere here. It's pretty hard to hear what's going on. So
okay, hope you've enjoyed the interviews.
We're going to make our way to the ceremony.
The finalists, we're going to go down and see the ceremony, and we'll see you after that for interviews with the winners.
With the winners, and also with the host, for this evening, Benjamin Zephaniah. So
okay,
super.
See you later.